American troops on battlefields in Afghanistan and Iraq. Fewer than before, but still there.
Yes, we do. And Donald Trump, I questioned about what he would do in Syria, his understanding of military policy and civilian-military divide. I don't know that he really has a plan. I was also looking back and at an interview Tim Kaine gave. Tim Kaine has a son in the Marine Corps. He was asked by John Dickerson, so if Donald Trump is democratically elected and your son is serving as a Marine, you wouldn't trust his life under that commander-in-chief? And Kaine said, I wouldn't. That's a pretty extraordinary thing to say if you have a son in the Marine Corps and that you don't trust the commander-in-chief. The people in the military defend the Constitution.
After the Civil War, there was Reconstruction. In Reconstruction, black Americans and white Americans attempted to build a new kind of South. I think the extent to which Donald Trump has won, running a campaign of racism and bigotry, turning out millions of white Americans for that campaign, suggests that we are living through a kind of second redemption, a kind of pushback against the advancement of African Americans, of Hispanics, of women, of Muslim Americans. And I don't know how long we live with that backlash.
I did not vote for him and could never have voted for someone who said the things that he said, who banned an entire religion. I mean, the Republican Party is going to have to grapple with who and what it is if he wins or loses. But people, voters, had an incredibly high threshold for pain and for intolerance and for these sort of racial and misogynistic undertones because they thought that he might be political chemo, this thing that could wipe out the cancer that is a corrupt Washington. And so they're willing to tolerate all that bad to get some dramatic change.
Actually, you said chemo. Somebody said to me, it's like, no, he's this. Yeah, there's only a 10% chance the pill would work, but I want to try it.
Right.
So when voters are really mad, they have a low tolerance for the baseball bat. They don't pick the prettiest one in town. They want a weapon, and he was that weapon, so they held him accountable to almost nothing.
Yeah, well, while I'm trying to be a professional pundit here on TV, I have a lot of friends and family members who are extremely upset. I mean, I'm just getting, like, a lot of people texting me who are completely bereft, weeping. And it's tough to know what to say in these circumstances if you were a Clinton partisan. But I'm just struck by my friends and family members who are completely, some of them devastated tonight.
It's one of those things where people may go and get a good night's sleep, but a couple of hours of rest and wake up in the morning, and how is it going to look in the bright daylight of Wednesday, November the 9th?
Now, I don't know that there's a whole lot of celebrating. There are going to be pockets of celebration, but you've got a big percent of the electorate. What is it? He had 60% disapproval rating. This isn't like, woo.
I can tell you where they're celebrating, in Moscow, and probably engaged in intelligence operations that ended up playing a factor in the race.
And Byron Pitts, let me bring this to you. As we've also been talking about, a lot of people upset by Donald Trump, a lot of people fearful of Donald Trump. How do they come to terms with the idea of him in the White House?
Well, George, not easily. As was reported earlier, I mean, there are a number of people, certainly Hispanics, who are fearful about being deported. There are people of color who are fearful that some of the tension we saw at some of the Trump rallies you may see on the streets of America, that people may feel emboldened to act a certain way. And we've always proven as a nation, no matter what, we survived a civil war, we survived 2 world wars, we survived the civil rights era, that whatever happens tomorrow, our history suggests that we always rise to the occasion.
Well, we survived the Civil War, but almost 600,000 Americans were killed. So it's not a period that we want to replicate. But there is a tremendous sense of disappointment.
George, Koki just showed me an email that the crowd at the Trump rally tonight began shouting, "Lock her up," when Podesta finished his statement. I don't know how you heal this. I don't know what he can say. I don't know what anybody can do to heal this.
The terror. Well, you know, we call this place Rebel Headquarters, and we were rebelling against the establishment. And now this will be true Rebel Headquarters as Trump and his cronies begin their march against our freedoms. So look, we're going to do analysis on the extent of the damage that could be done once the election is called. And it is not going to be pretty. And and then we might literally be targeted. So the crazy people are in charge. So it's not done yet, but the insane are about to take over the asylum. So we're this close.
Do the brains that got this guy elected president tonight apply to being a good president? I leave it as an open question. I hope there's some connection. But otherwise, we have a dingbat as president. We have a guy with no ability to be president. It's hopeless with terrible values and incompetence galore. And we're just into doomsday right now. I'm just not ready to accept that sort of notion right now in my head.
I will say, though, that I do think that this is a moment, however you feel about this election, to keep in your heart some of the communities that are not represented here on this set who have been directly threatened by Donald Trump in a way that nobody in this kind of position of power has ever threatened groups of Americans before. And Muslim Americans and Latino Americans and immigrants, documented and otherwise, right now are in fear for what the country just did and for what our country means. Not just what Trump will do, but what it means that our country just endorsed him after what he threatened against those parts of our fabric. And that's a responsibility we have on all of us now, regardless of what Trump does with this power that he's just been given.
Rachel, America is crying tonight. I'm not sure how much of America, but a very, very significant portion, and I mean literally crying. I've gotten texts from a college campus about a dorm that's just in tears. I know of another that I'm hearing from elsewhere. And some of the people you were just talking about are crying, from California to Massachusetts, about this. This is a sadness. It is a mourning moment for those people, and it is a moment filled with fear. Filled with fear.
People have talked about a miracle. I'm hearing about a nightmare. It's hard to be a parent tonight for a lot of us. You tell your kids, don't be a bully. You tell your kids, don't be a bigot. You tell your kids, do your homework and be prepared. And then you have this outcome, and you have people putting children to bed tonight, and they're afraid of breakfast. They're afraid of, how do I explain this to my children? I have Muslim friends who are texting me tonight saying, should I leave the country? I have families of immigrants that are terrified tonight. This was many things. This was a rebellion against the elites. True, it was a complete reinvention of politics and polls, it's true. But it was also something else. We've talked about race. I mean, we've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president, in part. And that's the part where the pain comes. And Donald Trump has a responsibility tonight to come out and reassure people that he is going to be the president of all the people who he insulted and offended and brushed aside. Yeah, when you say, you want to take your country back, you got a lot of people who feel that we're not represented well either. But we don't want to feel that someone has been elected by throwing away some of us to appeal more deeply to others.
I just don't think that we have like a hanging Chad situation here. Like, I mean, Ashley's been crunching the numbers all night. We don't have a path anymore. Like, there isn't a path. And so
there's not a path with what's left on the table.
There may, in fact, be a play, and that's what's being lined up right now, but there's not a path. And so whatever the play is, that is what I'm interested in finding out, because it's done. It's closed. So this is the conversation that needs to be happening, is what do we do next? And frankly, I don't want to spend time, I don't want the Democrats to spend time spinning themselves into a circle, going through, well, it should have been Bernie, and you have the Bernie bros come out and say, well, it should have been this and that. No. This is the day after tomorrow. This is the new day. This is America right now. So we need to figure out what's going on. And pointing the fingers, we don't have time for that. Because now we have, what, how many days until January 20th? And the Obamas pack up and they are gone? Like, we're on a countdown clock now to whatever. Apocalypse.
December 18th. December 18th, the Electoral College gathers to actually cast their votes.
Right.
We don't know what it's like to be isolated yet, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out really quick because this isn't just going to be economic. This is going to be military. Remember, in the UK, the conservative prime minister, well, the previous one and the current one, they were thinking about not letting Donald Trump into the country because they thought he fomented hate speech. Do you know how many different nations across this place don't really like us anyway? And this will be a perfect opportunity. We will see businesses leaving this country. We will see investment. We will see the immigration that comes to the United States from India, from South America, from Canada, from Asia, that helps us innovate, that helps us advance culturally and economically. Those people are not going to come here anymore.
Add something. As somebody who does travel a lot and does speak multiple languages, this victory confirms what many people around the world already have thought about the United States.
Yep, that's right.
That we, that we are ignorant, that we are racist, and that we live in a bubble where we think we're better than everybody else. So this is what it's confirming to them.
But that's
Obviously,
what the people have confirmed.
Exactly.
This is what I
That's
don't
what I'm
understand.
saying.
As a foreigner here, I've got to say, but that's what the people in this country have overwhelmingly said today. I just want to also draw you guys' attention to the fact what happened post-Brexit, to talk about kind of the fallout of what might happen if we have President Trump. I can't believe I said that on television. In Britain, according to the National Police Chiefs Council, hate crime rose by 58% in the weeks after 23rd.
Since Donald Trump started his campaign, hate groups in America have risen by 16%.
I'm reminded of Coates' sort of main theme in his book, and the fear that people of color have about losing their bodies. And I'm reminded of that. I'm getting text messages from people all over the country saying to me, I fear for my physical safety. I am afraid of what will happen to my children when they go to school tomorrow.
You already felt in the past 2 years, I mean, literally every person that I talk to when I'm in the field, right, is already scared of their kids going to school. Tomorrow it's validated.